Episode 4, The Tools of the Artist.
Welcome to the Visionary Variety Podcast, where we cover cool stuff like photo, video, film, books, and technology. So switch on your brain and enjoy the show.
All right, guys, welcome back to the show. So glad you joined us again. So today we're talking about some interesting stuff about art and creation and tools and technology. So the title of this, Tools of the Artist, kind of came from a discussion that popped up recently where someone was jokingly, saying like, what do you say when someone asks you as a photographer, oh, that's a nice camera. What camera do you use? Because a lot of times people ask photographers that because, they want to take good photos like the person, and they assume it's all about the camera. So they ask, well, what's your camera? So, and there's lots of funny things to respond. I got a bunch of awesome jokes to ways to respond to people about that, but that's not the point for this one. But that kind of spurred an idea in my head. It's like, it's just a tool. Like the camera for a photographer is just a tool. The paintbrushes are just a tool of the artist who paints, and, instruments are the tool of the artist who creates music. So what does that relationship look like? How should we think about tools when it comes to the nitty gritty of, I need to buy a good tool to make good art? Do you really? Or what are the limits of that? So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So let's first, outline a few things. So we're talking about artists and tools. So, in this discussion, it's very open-ended. And, if you're not a photographer, then please stay tuned. If you create anything, if you're a graphic artist, if you are a musician, or, what have you, hopefully you'll be able to get something out of this discussion. That's my goal. So in this talk, the artist is anyone who creates anything. I'm sure there's some exceptions that I haven't thought of yet, but basically that's where I'm going with, is anyone that makes, especially in the creative industries, in the music, arts, and theater, those kinds of worlds. And also, if you use technology to produce anything, this is probably going to apply to you in some way. And of course, the tool is anything that you use to accomplish that goal. So I'm a photographer. I use camera equipment. I use lights. I use lenses. I use software. That's also a tool that I use to fine tune and, produce my work. Angela is an artist. She uses pencils and paper. Am I correct in saying that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Make sure I don't, misrepresent you. So yeah, those are our tools. So first question for everybody here is, does the tool make the artist, or does the artist make the tool? What do you guys think?
Artist makes the tool, definitely. Yeah. I would say probably artist skill is 80% of the job, whereas tools make the remaining 20%. Because I've seen amazing artists use the most basic tools like Crayola colored pencils, or even just like coffee and a brush, and make the most amazing artwork out of it.
People make artwork with sand.
Exactly. So you can just use basic stuff like that in the hands of an experienced artist. They can make something absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Or canvas, glue, and glitter. And then they make some of the most amazing New York landscape I've ever seen. I'm like,
apparently that has happened. I saw that. I saw portraits. I'm gonna do like face portraits of people.
Or they basically refinish a wall to whatever color you'd ask for. And then they use, I think I shared this with y'all a while back, they use nails or screws.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, wow. And then as you step back, it's a portrait of your face, or a portrait of whatever.
It's like stippling. Stippling's where you do dots with a pen, but in a big scheme of things, it's nails.
Or screws.
That's insane.
And I'm like,
screws,
and if you want to take it a step further, then they go paint individual. I'm like, wow.
Oh, Lord. They better get paid a lot. Right. Probably not.
I want one. When I have the extra money just floating around for someone to be like, yeah, that wall right there, just go put nails and screws and make my face. I want
a Chewy. I want a 10 by 8 foot Chewy portrait of nails.
We're gonna that'd be really cool. But if we're gonna do that big a scale of things, we're gonna have a logo of Star Wars or something, or a really, 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 really big spaceship or something. But
yes. Imagine the details like a Star Destroyer, all the little nails.
There you go.
Oh my gosh.
I'm already getting carpal tunnel just thinking about it. So I agree. I think that the artist is about 80% and the tool does the remaining, in the sense that it does, in most cases, a tool will do something that artists couldn't do on their own, unless you're like a dancer, whereas your body is the tool. But we're talking more about producing things outside yourself.
Well, I mean, then it becomes a skill. So
yeah, you're right. Like speaking or singing, whatever. Yeah, so that's not really producing. That's just an awesome skill. A great artist can take any minor tool and make it into and make great things with it. So it's definitely more the artist is giving value to the tool. A less skilled artist or someone who's not an artist cannot pick up a top of the line piece of equipment and do awesome stuff with it.
Exactly.
It's just not going to happen because they don't have what's inside that matters. They don't have the creativity, the skill, the experience. Yep. They don't have the internal stuff to make anything. So. Yeah, so I totally agree.
Yeah.
And that this stuff is important because you have to have the right mindset about your equipment, especially in the photography world and videography world that Nate's in as well. Is there's kind of a joke. It's called GAS. Do you have GAS? And GAS is GAS. It's Gear Acquisition Syndrome, and this is what even professionals get it, but a lot of times newer people that are kind of newer to the scene and learning everything and getting starry eyes when they shop through Amazon of all the awesome stuff they want to buy. They got gas. They have gear acquisition syndrome. They just want to buy the top of the line stuff. And the problem is they think that getting that top of the line stuff will make top of the line photos or videos. Anything they touch is going to be gold because they got, the $4,000 lens and the $10,000 camera. Sorry, it's not how this works.
There's a guy on YouTube I was watching. He's I believe a sound engineer and he plays instrument. And he was talking, it's not all about gear and stuff. It's about the sound and about the passion and the talent. So he took a $50 microphone and recorded all his different instruments. So vocals, guitar, drum, and so on. And then he used Audacity to mix it.
Oh my gosh.
It sounded like, and then he ripped an album. And that was
very cool.
That's awesome. I love that.
Nice.
Yeah, I've been meaning for years to do a photo shoot with I still have my first camera that I started with professionally. It's a Rebel XSI. So a lot of, the Rebel line is still going strong, but now they're on like the 7th version or something, like the 7th or 8th generation of Rebels. I had the second one ever made, which came out in like 2008, I think, 2009, the XSI. I think it came around that time.
Yeah.
And so that was a camera I started, doing semi-professional photography on, and I learned the heck out of that camera. I squeezed every megapixel out of that thing that I could, and I learned how to, control manual exposure, how to, pose and find good locations. That's what made my photos great, was the planning and the creativity and the vision behind the photos, not the measly 12 megapixels that it had. And I used beginner lenses for years. That's all I could afford, and then eventually I finally got a 50 millimeter lens, and I learned how to use that to Nifty 50. It's a great beginner lens. I use that to its limits, and eventually I did hit the ceiling. Eventually I was finding my limitations in my professional world and what I wanted to do, further things that my camera couldn't handle, and so I did upgrade my tools because of that. But I've been meaning to do a photo shoot with my very first equipment and see how good I can make something look with very underperforming equipment. That'd be fun.
It would be.
Mm-hmm.
And I would also like to see, Angela, you do a crayon portrait, please.
I'll see what I can
Finger
do.
paint.
Finger paint. Oh my gosh.
I have no idea what I could do, but
use your phone. Do a video of a wedding with your phone.
Oh damn.
Sure, that'll go over well with the bride and groom.
I'm gonna do this one free, guys.
You might get sued, but
no, I'd have to.
It's all fun games until you get sued.
I'd have to do something like that for free.
Yeah.
Like it's on me, guys.
Yep. So before we get any further into our discussion and theories and stuff, let's talk about the nitty gritty. What stuff do we actually use? So I'll start with myself. So as a photographer, I do some video work, but I focus on photography and portraits. So I use a Canon 6D. That's a full frame camera. I love it. And for my lenses, I have a 50 millimeter 1.4, which is great for portraits in low light. I have a 16 to 35 millimeter 2.8, which is great for wide angles and also, dimmer settings, a lot of landscape and, fisheye stuff like that, and close quarters. And then I have a 100 millimeter 2.8, which is kind of my zoom, and also for macros. So I like to use that during weddings to get ring shots and, photographing them from the back of the aisle, things like that. So those are my 3 lenses that I have, and I love them to death because they really cover the general range from wide angle to medium to zoomed in. And then for my lights, I use Yongnuo, which is a Japanese brand that is super cheap. I use my 2 main flashes that I use right now. They're $60 each. That's awesome.
What's that equivalent to? Like we were talking back and forth about the lights are almost like identical to.
They are. Even the physical body shell that you get these flashes in, like what they use in the factory that makes them, are are kind of strangely way too similar to the Canon bodies. You kind of wonder, are they really making the same flash and relabeling it? I don't know. I don't think so, but very, very similar. So yeah, I use the Yongnuo 560 4s IV, and they're great. $60 manual flashes. I control wirelessly, and that's how I do all my cool lighting and colors and stuff like that. And then, of course, for editing, I'm on a Windows, and I use Lightroom and Photoshop. So those are my tools. What about you, Nate? What do you use?
I use cameras. I currently am using the Sony brand of their it's kind of like a camcorder, but it's not. It's a full frame camera, with interchangeable lens. It's called the Nex BG900. It's the top of the line right before you get into some of their bigger bodies in 4K and all that fun stuff. And I currently have 3 of them, and then I've been also using Sony's line of the A6000, and I have a couple of wide angles, a couple telephotos. I'm kind of not all over the map, but I have a couple of everything because, of course, I have 3 angles of everything, so I have to be kind of versatile. Tripods, lights, and I saved all my pennies and found pennies on the ground to be able to buy.
You need a lot of pennies for video equipment.
To buy the Ronin M, the first version, and I love that thing. Of course, with all gear and technology, it gives me some issues sometimes, But
now for those who don't know, just say real quick what that is. What does it really do?
That is a 3-axis gimbal that has motors and interchangeable batteries. And so when you guys think of high-end rigs like in Hollywood, like they put the harness on, they put the arm on, they put the camera on, and then they walk, and it looks like it's just floating
around.
It's basically the little over $1,000 version of that instead of the $500,000 version.
And it's just handheld. You got 2 handles on either side, right?
Correct. Well, you have 3 handles actually, but yeah, it feels like a bicycle handle, and then you have like a handle on top, kind of like a briefcase.
That's right. Yeah, you can hold it from the top. And so as you move around, you're turning, you're walking forwards and backwards. It keeps your camera totally stable.
Well, that's the thing is people buy these and they're like, oh, I'm going to have beautiful, buttery, smooth stuff. That's not the case. So I'm going to let everybody know right now. You buy a gimbal and you think you're going to get buttery, smooth stuff. I'm so sorry, but I hate to break it to you, but you're not. There's techniques and hands-on experience.
No magic pill.
You actually have to walk, and the way you rotate your body weight itself and the rotation of your arms. So, and people are like, oh, well, when I get this, I'm going to be the guy. Well, I'm going to let everybody know that when you think you're the guy, that thing gets heavy after a while. And and so there are a step up. Actually, Daniel and I know a guy that runs around the Comic-Cons. He has a harness that basically holds onto it, and just the harness is like $1,000. I'm like, and so
you can spend money real quick on camera stabilization products.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
And then software. I'm also on a PC, Windows. I use Lightroom for any photos I do take, which is very rare, and Premiere Pro. But see, guys, that's the thing is I haven't only been on a Premiere Pro for like maybe a year. I was using some $70 software, Adobe Elements 11, I think. So way back when.
Oh, nice.
And people were like, man, that's great. You're on Premiere Pro. And I'm like, no. I'm like, Premiere Pro, like the subscription thing you pay monthly?
5-year-old software.
Like, no, I'm using free. I'm basically using a one payment software. They're like, well, how'd you get the black bars? I'm like, have you ever looked in Google for black images, like a black background, and then like paste it?
Got to think a little bit. I had a similar moment to that. So a few years ago, I posted some photos that I did of a little kid's baptism. Really cute little handsome guy wearing like a pimp in white suit at his baptism. He was like 5-year-old. And as I posted a photo, and it was great. The focus was right on because I knew how to autofocus. I was good at it. I used my 50mm, so I had a nice blurry background. The exposure was great because it was a cloudy day, and I edited it just right? So I posted it, and this was done with my little Rebel XSI and a $300 lens. And someone commented, said, "Wow, was this the Mark III?" Which is at the time that was the latest and greatest camera that Canon had ever made, right? Like the 5D Mark III was like the hot stuff. And so someone said, "Wow, is that the 5D, which is like $5,000?" And I'm like, "Nope, I'm using a Rebel. Thank you very much." Because I knew how to use what I had, and I used what I had, and I got the most quality I could out of it. So.
Well, I've been fortunate. Like I've been doing video stuff since I was 12. I'm about to be 24.
You get a good head start.
And so I've been using, like, at least at that time, it was cool to have like TV grade stuff. So I was using TV grade stuff. But then when it came to like my own personal at home stuff, I think there was a small JVC camera, which is fine. And I think my dad had like an older, more of like the digital Pentax. I think it was full frame. It wasn't a point and shoot. It was a multi lens flash, and I think it was like the step up right when we got into the digital world. And so that was where I had to be creative. And my dad took a couple wedding photos, and people were like, "Oh, you have that high-end camera?" And he's like, "No, I have a Pentax with some really nice lenses." And then I did a music video on a JVC camera, and they're like, "Oh, dude, like, how'd you do that?" And I'm like, I flipped open my little screen and held it against my body to stabilize it. And
awesome.
And so it's not always about the gear. It's about, the operator, the creator, the person.
Totally. Cool. Angela, tell us about what you do and what you use.
Okay. Well, I specialize in graphite pencil art. So just basic pencils for the most part of what I use. The brand that I use is the Kimberly brand, which honestly is pretty basic. It's like a step up above a number 2 pencil. And the only reason I get it is because that's what my Hobby Lobby near me carries. And they do a pretty good job. The big difference between maybe artist grade pencils and just the standard number 2s is that they have a range, like they have different hardness and softness values. The harder pencils give you really light strokes, and the bolder pencils make a deeper, blacker marks on the paper.
Like 2B, and how are they marked?
Exactly, like 6H, 4H, and they go all the way down to like 6B.
Yeah, I remember that from art class, but that's all I remember. Cool.
Right. Yeah. So I have a fairly nice set of those. I don't have like all the values. I don't feel like that's necessary to have them all. And I have like different kinds of erasers to use. I have a kneaded eraser, which is like a clay type material, which gently lifts off pencil marks to give you, so that way you're not like fully erasing anything. And I also use an electric eraser, which is what you use for the heavy duty erasing.
An electric eraser?
It's pretty nice. It's a pretty new tool of mine. I've only started using it for like the last several drawings I've used.
Welcome to the 21st century.
Yeah.
Oh, it's pretty snazzy. Cool. You just hold a button and it makes the eraser vibrate, and when you slide it across the paper, it makes...
That's cool.
Yeah, it erases the marks pretty well. And the kind of paper I use is Strathmore 300 series brand, and it's a nice, has a nice weight to it. It's definitely heavier than printer paper, which I definitely would not recommend using for legit
really?
art.
What?
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, it's awful. And I use the vellum surface, which compared to smooth, it has more texture, which I like. Some people don't like that for more realistic drawings because it kind of gives the papery texture. But I find with smooth, my pencils, my graphite just slides like all across the surface of the paper, and it just messes it up, and I can't stand it.
Yeah.
And for blending materials, I just use tissues and blending stumps to smooth out pencil lines, and those are really, really cheap things to use. And they work really well for me.
Yeah, drawing is I'd say financially it's very cheap to get into. Photography and videography, not so much.
compared to that stuff. I mean, there's really expensive stuff. Like if you're getting into painting, you can definitely drop a pretty penny on that stuff,
paint and brushes. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, which this is the main reason why I haven't delved into painting so much. It's just I can't.
That's why a lot of people do digital painting now.
Exactly.
So expensive.
Right. I mean, you gotta drop like $1,000 for Photoshop or something if you're gonna go that direction. But yeah.
Or $10 a month now. Don't forget.
Oh, is it? Okay, I wasn't aware of that. and for digital stuff, when I've dabbled into that, I just use the free and cheap, relatively cheap software like GIMP or Krita, Inkscape,
those are
Studio
great.
Paint.
Yeah.
Yeah, GIMP and Krita are very powerful for the fact that they're freeware and they've got layers, they've got filters, and they're awesome.
Yeah, and Krita's got like a really nice set of brushes in it. It's really good for painting, and I'm surprised. And Inkscape works. It's a vector software which it stands up on its own compared to Adobe Illustrator pretty well. So I've been pleasantly surprised with that software. I've only recently got into it, and I'm really liking it a lot.
Yeah, we're going to do an episode about this, but there's some amazing freeware out there that can do so many tasks. And if you don't have money to spend on cool software, if you're not making money and you can't justify spending, monthly money on stuff, there's some really great free alternatives, and I definitely want to cover that.
Yeah, it's very true, especially if you just want to get a start in it and see if you like it before you commit to.
Yeah, man, you might find out. You might find out you're a virtuoso genius and you can really go in all in. But you might also find out that you're horrible and this is not your not your calling. Don't waste your time.
Right. Yeah, nice to test the waters there with that stuff.
Awesome. All right, so that's the tools that we use. Let's talk about this real quick. This is kind of relating to that and how we got started. What is some equipment that you do not need that when you started out you thought you had to have, or that everyone told you, oh, you got to buy this or you can do this? Like, what are some things that maybe you got jibbed into buying that you end up being junk? I'll start with me. So when I bought my first when I first bought my camera setup when I was in college in 2009, I bought my Rebel. I bought a camera kit. A lot of people start with these kits on eBay is where I got it. And it was like $2,000 and it had the camera, it had 2 lenses. So the things that I didn't need out of that kit was like the tripod. Man, those cheap tripods you get in those combo kits are so awful. They're plastic, they're jumpy, there's friction. You cannot do video work with them. They'll break. They're really bad, and then they'll wiggle. Your tripod is supposed to be totally sturdy, but if you just spend anything under the $50 for a tripod, don't expect it to actually do its job. You'll regret it. So the cheap tripods, it came with all these filters. It came with these like magnifying filters. Like it would make your image, it would magnify the image before it got into your lens, and it would screw on the end of your lens. So it was like a magnifier, and then there was, I guess a demagnifier for like wide angle or the other way around. Real gimmicky stuff that no professional in their right mind is going to use. And if you want to get technical, those things actually lower the light quality and the image quality going into your camera. So you don't want to use those anyway. So a lot of gimmicky stuff that I got with my setup to begin with. I did not end up ever using, and now that I know what they actually do, I would not advise anyone else to use them. So
unless that's the look you're going for.
Yeah, lower image quality and chromatic aberration and out of focus images.
I've seen people use some pretty low end stuff to make some pretty incredible stuff because they have the idea that they're that talented. They can take something that's not that great and make it like, wow, okay.
Yeah, if you have the skills and the creativity, you can achieve movie level, effects or looks with really like household items. It's kind of cool. So that's the DIY side of things, which is fun. But starting off, don't just calm down, buy what you need, save some money, or spend good money on something you actually need, and not a bunch of money on something you don't need.
It's a 2-lane road, really.
It's tricky.
It's like, okay, come out swinging and buy it one time.
Yeah.
And be happy with what you have and don't keep adding to the list.
And it'll last you 5 or 10 years.
Yeah. So if you're going to drop money on gear, equipment, supplies, whatever, either you commit and then don't buy anything else, or don't complain and just buy what you can at the time and get the best that you can out of it.
Yeah, you're right. It's a balancing act, and there's no perfect answer. But you have to consider a few different things. Like, first of all, how much money do you have to spend on this thing? Don't go into debt. Don't ruin your life because you just have to have this thing and start your photography business. And then the second thing is, are you going to be making money off this? Is this kind of a hobby? Are you curious about it? So I wouldn't advise spending thousands of dollars on something you're really not sure if you're passionate about it yet, or if you're going to be any good at it yet. And that's where cheap gear kind of comes in. It is nice to start with a $300-$400 camera to see if it's your thing. So you kind of have to find that balance.
I think going that way helps.
Yeah, it's safer. It really breaks my heart to see people invest in a whole business plan and invest in a studio and office, and then it turns out, they went under in 2 years because they just hated it and it wasn't their thing.
Yeah.
Maybe they're a business person. Maybe they're a business person and not an artist. Or vice versa. I see artists go all in and they don't invest in the other stuff like the business and the legal side, and then they crumble because they couldn't handle the weight of the business. They're just a really good producer or a really good editor, and that's all they can do. So you just got to get some wisdom and get some help. Don't go in just all on your own.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think at least in my opinion, like what Daniel said, don't put yourself in debt. And then don't buy something that you're not going to use in a year. If it's sitting on your shelf, you shouldn't have bought it.
Yeah, read reviews. Read way too many reviews to learn how this thing actually works and how it performs.
I mean, not when I was younger, but we live in an era where you can actually rent stuff, at least for gear. And I know a lot of people that will rent stuff.
Oh yes, thank you for that's a great tip. Thank you for bringing that. I didn't even think about that. So this is cool. So let's say you want to buy, the 70 to 200 2.8 lens, and it's, what is it, like $3,800 or something like that. Rent it. You can rent it for like under $200. And if you got a wedding or a gig, just book a gig just to pay for the rental, so you can test this thing out. And while you have this lens, or while you have this camera, which is what I did before I bought my 60, I rented it, and I used it for 2 weddings in a row. And also I rented a 72 to 200 just for fun. But so rent stuff to try it out, and book some free photo shoots that weekend. 2 or 3 different kinds of photo shoots, so you can really test out your equipment. That's a really great way to figure out if you really should invest in something long term.
Yeah. Oh,
cool.
But I think what I was going to say besides renting is if you can, and it's not going to hurt you as a person and your character, I think going in the lower end of stuff and basically using it to the point where there's no more creativity coming out of that.
Yes.
Helps you grow as a person in the I think in the hobby, or
squeeze the life out of whatever you have.
Yeah, I mean, it helps you understand, okay, well, this $300 camera or lower, I can push the limits. I know what I can get out of it. So if I can take a step up, I know what I can do. So I've surpassed from the lowest to mid. Now I get a camera that's $1,000. Okay, so now I know what the lowest is. Now I can learn, what the middle to the highest is.
Yeah, working your way up is really, it's going to take some more time to get to a really high-end goal of equipment, but you build all the things within you that really matter, like knowledge of your gear. And when you have a cheap lens, well, what makes it cheap? Well, you learned about the fact that it's made of pure plastic. It makes it an unreliable, undurable lens.
Not
and you
waterproof.
Definitely not. Sometimes they're not even airproof. And you learn other things. This is just an example of equipment, but with that lens, you can learn that, this lens is it's f3.5 to f5.6. And why does that affect my images? Why does the images get darker as I zoom in? Well, it's because your aperture changes automatically to f5.6, and that is very annoying. So don't get that again. Get an f4, get an f1.8, or f2.8 lens, and you really learn the hard way, which is the good way to learn, or rather the best way to learn for long-term results. So what are some things that you guys think make an artist the great artist? It's not necessarily the tools inherently. What are some things that do make an artist good?
Hands-on experience. Knowing what you're good and not good at.
Oh yeah, that's
definitely.
I turn down jobs. I'll turn down jobs if I know I'm not going to be good at it. And if I'm going to make a subpar quality, I don't want that to be on my record or on my conscience. I don't want to charge people for subpar work. So I'll be like, that's not my expertise. Sorry.
I've done the same.
Yep. That's good.
I think in my case, having basic knowledge of the fundamentals of art, such as form, perspective, anatomy, composition, values, lighting, etc., that helps a lot.
Yeah, when people look at your work, they're just like in awe, because your portraits are so good. They're realistic. They look like the character. You just want to look at it for a long time. And they're not going to say, well, maybe not all of them, but most people are not going to say, wow, your anatomy proportions are so good. But if you were not good at anatomy, they would at least be in their mind. They'd be like, something's not right, or their arms are too long. So people will complain about it if it's there, but a good artist is so transparent in their work that people don't even mention the technical aspects. They just want to look at it and just look at the beauty of your work. Yeah, so the things your technical skills and knowledge about art, it really will help your art be better.
Exactly. And that extends, like, no matter what medium you use, that knowledge will carry over to whatever you decide to pursue.
Yeah. I mean, the things that I use that, and this sounds really boasty, but the things that make my photography good or great is the things that I learned in art class, about drawing and painting. Like I learned composition. I learned the 12 or 13 principles of art. All those things play into how I make my photos and edit them.
Nice.
That's an episode on its own. And one thing that maybe will be easily missed, but in the artist world, there's a lot of flaky artists out there. So reliability and continuity in your work is a really great trait to have, because someone can rely on you to produce something one time and it's awesome, and then the next time you're lazy and you don't put your all into it. That's pretty bad for your reputation. So having that reliability and that the constantness is really important.
I agree.
Cool. All right. So here's something that came to my mind when I was planning this out was that art as an expression of human nature and curiosity and knowledge. It's something that's always existed, but the technologies are what changes. They're really just different tools or different ways to express what's inside your heart and your mind, your things you've learned or want to communicate to other people. And so art is a constant, but the tools are always changing and quote unquote improving. Some people disagree, saying, all this newfangled camera stuff. Back in the film days when real photography, whatever. Don't really agree with that, but there's always the tool.
I feel a rant coming on.
Oh yeah, I'm trying to control myself.
Let's just keep painting on cave walls, why don't we?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So specifically in the photo and video world, there's that thing that happens where they get the gear acquisition syndrome. So they think that tool is going to make their art better when they realize that people have been making incredible movies since movies were even a thing. And they didn't have, the HD, 4K,
right,
whatever monster sensor inside your camera. You just really need to focus on like the priorities need to be in line. And gear is not number 1 or number 5. More important things to really be working on. And this is important too. As an artist, when you have slow times, don't just get bummed out and think that you're not worth it and get all in that depressed artist mode, and you're just kind of in the corner, like being sad. Do something about the fact that you don't have any clients. And that doesn't always mean advertising the heck out of your work and trying to get people to pay you, but rather work on your skills that you can work on when you have some downtime. During my slow seasons of photography, which, are like winter, I hate winter, and summer, I also hate summer because it's just hard to take photos outside. I'm not a studio person. No one wants to do family photos when it's 95 degrees outside in Texas.
I agree. I was just with you recently, and it was like 28 degrees, and the wind chill was colder. So.
And your clients are blurry in every photo because they're shaking.
Oh my gosh.
Not conducive to great family photos. So in my slow season, I change my mindset. I say, okay, I can't necessarily, I'll do what I can to advertise and to keep, revenue coming in, but I can't make people value me and pay me right now. But what I can do is I can make myself better. So I will, make lists of YouTube videos to watch. I'll bookmark a bunch of tutorials and lessons and, walkthroughs.
YouTube University.
Oh yeah, that's what I call it. Majority of my education is from there. And also from learning how to ask questions in Google search. Some people just don't know. They don't know how to ask in the search bar. I'm like, why are you asking me what the address is of this place? Google it.
I know.
I don't get it.
Oh my goodness, that's a pet peeve of mine too.
This is a side trail, but there's a funny website called Let Me Google That For You. And what you do is you go to this link, you go to the website, you type in something that someone has asked you about, and you send them the link that it gives you. And so when they go to that link, looks like it opens up Google, and it'll type in, here, let me search that for you. And it types it in, like you see their text fill in the search bar, and it hits enter, and then they actually have real Google results in front of them.
Oh my gosh.
What is this website called?
I think it's Let Me Google That For You. Something similar to that. Let me search that for you. It's great. For those lazy people that ask you a dumb question that could have been searched for. Yeah.
Thank you for that opportunity.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. Because there's people in my life, they're like, can you Google that for me? And then I'm like, yeah, I can share the link with you. Thank you.
Send them that link. They're like, this link looks weird. They'll click on it and then they'll do it for you. Then they'll realize how lazy they are.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So where was I going with this?
I don't know. We were being smart. And now we're talking about how we control people.
Oh, learning things. Thank you. Somehow your sarcasm got me back on track. So learning things. Yeah, just take your downtime, learn something new, learn a different way to achieve your same artwork, learn a different tool. If you edit, learn a different editing program or learn different techniques that you don't like for some strange reason. Maybe you're wrong. Maybe they were a great technique and you've been avoiding them. I mentioned earlier, people asking photographers, oh, that's a nice camera, or I love your photos. What camera do you use? Like, I try not to be mean to them. And I'm successful at it because I'm a nice person. But in the back of my head, I want to strangle them a little bit. I want to say, it's not the camera that makes my photos good. It's me and my editing.
It's the presets.
It's all presets. Haven't you learned anything? No. It's a combination of everything. It is part of my camera, sure. That's what captures things, and I'm breaching the limits of other cameras because I have my camera, which is nicer than others. It's not the nicest. It's been replaced now. Though now there's a 6D Mark II out there. But I'm not about to spend $2,000 for a few extra features. Not yet, at least. So just putting that out there. If someone wants to gift me that, go ahead.
Tisk.
Hey, we'll give you our address and stuff of where we want stuff to be sent.
Oh my gosh.
This could go south real quick. So when people ask me that, if I want to be funny, if I know they're not going to be offended, and they say, what camera do you use? I say, or they'll say, that's a nice camera. I'll say, thanks. I taught it everything I know.
That's true.
Now all I do is press the button and it takes the photo, it edits it for me, it makes it professional, and posts it on social media for me.
That should be like your slogan.
Taught it everything I know. I picked it up for another photographer in town. I can't remember who it was. I hope they're not mad at me, but yeah. I did a poll. Actually on the local photography group on Facebook, and I did the questions. Wow, that's a nice camera. What is it? And I did a poll like, what response do you give? And some of them were really funny. And it was pretty great seeing what people said.
Nice.
There's the nice responses saying, oh, thank you, and you tell them the camera gear, and you say, but what really matters is who's behind the camera, not what the camera is. Mm-hmm. That's the nice, polite response if you want to be informative.
I guess I can see why people would want to know, because maybe they like the quality of it, the look of it, the bokeh and the lens. So if I look at it that way, I'm like, well, then I understand. But if they're just like, oh, I'm going to get that exact same thing, then I'm so sorry. But
yeah. Well, but unless you're viewing this photo 100% size on some monitor that's capable of actually showing, a 26 megapixel or 22 megapixel image full size, unless you're looking at that, which nobody does, you're actually just looking at a small computer screen or a phone. I don't know if images are that different. Say if I shot one with a Rebel versus my current camera. Now, if it's low light, then yes, there's a limitation for my Rebel. It can't shoot low light like this. Or I don't know, if it has to do with dynamic range, there is some extra dynamic range. But when you're looking on small screens, the look of straight out of the camera is not going to be that different from another straight out of the camera view.
Yeah.
But the true end look that people like my work for, or why people like any photographer, is because of their editing and their combination of use of different techniques. So it's important to be aware, just having that awareness of the quality of your art versus the quality of your tool, and not putting one above, not necessarily putting one above the other, but definitely not relying on something else to do your work for you. So my big tip for you to focus on, if you're an artist or producer, is come up with better art. It's pretty simple. Just do it. Just do it.
Just stepping stones.
Shia LaBeouf, where are you? Do it.
We need you.
Yeah. So, focusing on the quality of your art is what's going to make people want your art, and want to pay you for your art, because it is good and it's unique. It's not like everybody else. I've had people, not encouragingly about my cosplay photography, in the sense that they'll say, cosplayers, they don't have a lot of money, which is true. They'll say, well, they don't really want to pay, full dollar for, they want to pay more than $50 for a photo shoot. And, which is still mostly true. But I want to prove them wrong by having cosplay work that is so good that people are willing to pay top dollar, because they know that they can't get it anywhere else. Nice. And I'm not saying I'm the best at all, and I'm not saying I've even reached this goal, but I'm getting there. And I have my own style, and I have things that I can do that not a lot of other people in this area at least can do. And so that I'm reaching my goal slowly through learning and through pushing myself to use the most out of my tools, and even to incorporate new tools. I use 3D programs to enhance some of my photo shoots. So that's a tool that photographers don't use 3D rendering programs, but I do. And that's a new tool, because I want to make my art unique, and I want to stand out, and I want people to value me because my work is different. And so I'm putting in the time. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of, devotion. Sometimes I get burnt out from doing this stuff, and I have to take a break and come back to it.
Overachiever. You overachiever, you.
Kind of am. But the
I'm
more you
gonna
overachieve,
take an image and then I'm gonna make it 3D. Yeah.
Matrix fly through. Yeah, nice. You have to balance, real life too. Don't get burnt out in your artwork, because you're going to hate it. Take breaks. Maybe that will make someone a good artist. To take a break from being an artist.
Yeah.
A little vacation,
Or go pick up a hobby.
Yeah. Get a life.
Even though video taking, photo taking, and art are all hobbies at first.
Yeah.
But as you transition into doing it more full time, you may likely also transition into hating it more if you're not having fun. And that's something what I love that I've discovered is I have discovered an art form that it's a lot of work, and I don't make a lot of money off of it right now, but it's so much fun. Like I really enjoy doing the creative stuff that I do, even if it's not cosplay. Good. Like if it's just a styled photo shoot, like I find joy in that, and that keeps me going.
Christmas cards.
Yeah, Nate is referencing my out of the box Christmas card photos I've done of his family. We did Star Wars 2 years ago, and last year we did like a 1930s noir at a train station. It was really cool. Not your average.
Yep.
So I like that stuff. It keeps me kind of refueled. It keeps me on my toes. I got to learn new stuff to do it. So I encourage that to all artists to do something new. If you're a musician and you do rock and roll or you do praise and worship, like do something different. I don't know, try a different genre. Try a different tuning for your guitar. Play totally different chords. Learn a new key and write a song in that key. Just stretch yourself.
Play your guitar upside down. I'm sure.
Yeah, smash it on the ground.
Didn't Jimi Hendrix do that? There you go.
Play it with your teeth.
Ooh, no.
Who knows?
Ooh, no. My teeth would be hurting. It'd be like nails on a chalkboard kind of feeling.
Mm-hmm. Ugh. Yeah, and so stretching yourself as an artist is an essential part to growing and staying relevant and staying fresh. Yeah. Angela and I have a lot of stuff in common actually with our art. We both started with anime as kids, or not, maybe not started with anime, but did anime for a long time and loved it. Yeah. But we kind of grew out of it. For me, I just got tired of the minimalistic anime style. I wanted to do more realistic. I wanted to portray people in a way that someone could recognize them as somebody else.
Yeah, same here.
And I just wanted more realism, more detail in my drawings. And anime is very minimal in the level of detail. It's just pretty bare bones most of the time. Yeah. So I tried something new, and I liked it. I stopped drawing anime, and I kind of pursued a different style, and I'm glad I did. So who knows? Yeah. Your next weird, slow season experiment could be your specialty.
Very true. Don't stay stagnant.
Yes, don't do it.
Keep things fresh.
It's okay to be a know-it-all.
Well,
may not have many friends, but it's okay.
What are you trying to say?
No, I'm saying like it's okay to pick up another hobby and be talented in that hobby as well. It's okay to get another, be good at multiple things. Mm-hmm. But
that's a good point too. In the artistic industries, plural, because there's so many, it's hard. I mean, photography is a hard business to make money off of. Videography is probably even harder to really convince people, hey, you need video of your wedding. Like this is important, and it is worth paying me, $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, whatever you charge. It's hard to make it as
or
this
you
kind of
just
artist.
Pay me and I won't show up. I like that one.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that might work out once or twice. Then you'll find yourself in trouble.
I've only had that happen once.
What, you didn't show up?
What?
Okay, so like 2 years ago,
got to tell the story now.
This guy reached out to me about a wedding that was going to happen probably about 30 minutes or so from my home, and so he and I went back and forth, and then my mom is awesome and sometimes plays a secretary role for me, and it's awesome. So we went back and forth, and he wanted a link for payment because I went ahead and did Square because I was not trying to drive 45 minutes for him to tell me no. And so he paid it, and I think he paid $1,800. Something about the whole thing felt fishy, and I called my bank and I told them not to deposit it. And my mom and I did some phone tag with the photographer. We finally figured out who the photographer was. We figured out who the venue coordinator was. And they said that they had been approached by that guy, but there's no wedding happening that day.
Oh, snap.
What?
And that the photographer was also approached, but there was no wedding happening that day. Nothing was in the books. And so
Weird.
I froze that deposit. I had everything ready to go, just in case I got that last second. Hey, where are you?
In case it was real.
And I think we were in the communication with the wedding coordinator and the venue coordinator for I think 2 weeks or so or longer.
Yeah.
And nothing. Day of, nothing. Day after, nothing. Week
Wow.
after,
So
nothing.
weird.
Month after, nothing. And I was like, you know what? I told my bank, I was like, does this seem fishy to you? And they're like, well, it does. I said, do you see where the money came from? And I said, well, we can't get too much into the information, but it looks legit.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, well, go ahead and let it through. And so I didn't, but it was like a good maybe month and a half that I didn't let it go through. And so I left it sitting in my business account and I didn't touch it. I didn't spend it.
That's smart.
And if I spent anything, then I was just going to replace it with the money I already had in there. And I never heard from that guy
That's
ever
hilarious.
again. And nothing suspicious ever happened from my account.
Oh, it's good. And you bought a new lens.
No, I paid off some bills and some business stuff, and I was like, woohoo.
Now, in fairness, did you try to contact this mysterious shady character?
Yeah, no, and then he just stopped talking.
All right, well, hey, there's that.
I said, all good. I've talked to the photographer.
I'm taking your money.
The wedding, and I'm like, you spent money. And I reached out to him. I said, I'm more than happy and willing to refund your money for something that's not happening. Nothing. Week later,
clear conscience.
No, and that took like maybe a month and a half. I even had I had my mom read through some of the emails because, of course, she was doing a lot of the communication as well. So she knew what was happening, but she read my end of things and I read her end of things. And I said, "What do you think?" And she says, "Well, it's kind of his loss now." So, and I said, "That's crazy, free money."
Hey, you definitely spend time, working and laboring to communicate. Get paid for that.
There you go.
But
That's
a wedding
crazy,
that
man.
never happened, but I got paid for.
Cool. Well, this has been a good discussion. I hope those who are listening have, gotten something, despite the fact that they may not be a photographer or a videographer, like me and Nate, and maybe they're not a drawing artist like Angela. But I think the concept of art and tools, and you using them and relying on them properly, and having a realistic expectation of what you're getting, I think all these things will apply to a lot of different, markets and avenues. So. Hope that helps somebody out there.
Creativity is endless.
Yes. So stretch yourself, try new things, diversify, fill up your downtime with learning, get better at what you do.
Very cliche, but the sky is the limit.
Oh my gosh. I need that on a cheesy poster like in elementary school. You remember all those dumb encouragement posters they had on the walls? Did y'all schools have that?
Be awesome.
Yeah, that's like a picture of like a kid or like a kitten, and it's like, I'm cute. I don't know. It's just stupid poster.
Or a picture of a cat says, "Be soft like kitties." I'm like, what?
Or the kitten looking in the mirror, and in the reflection is like its tiger, or a lion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Be all you can be.
Oh, those cliches, they hurt me. Well, thank you guys for listening once again. We hope to have you back next week. Have a good one.
Some of them, they're good in a good time, but there's some cliches and I'm like, oh no.
They were well-intentioned.
I'm going to use be soft like kitties all the time now.
That's your business motto?
Yep. It's going to be on my business card.
It's really like deep. Kitties. It's a deep metaphor. There's just so much there. I can't even explain it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. For those that understand know what we're talking about, but I don't know what I'm talking about, so.
So we'll end this podcast now.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
Sorry.